Good morning, my neighbors!
Well, good morning, you sexy mother hubbards. No paper review from me this morning. It's a London day, so I haven't got time to edit. But I thought I'd just give you a stock take on how things are in this here, the formerly Great Britain. Are you ready? Okay, let's do this. We are currently living in a country that is led or ruled by complete reprobates. By gangsters. Basically, let's do a stock take of the cabinet, shall we? So we have a Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, who has no mandate. He's not Prime Minister because he led a campaign and got that party elected. He's Prime Minister because he was the second best after Liz Truss ruined everything. So that's the first thing. Illegitimate Prime Minister clinging on to power. Who's the Secretary of State for Defence at a time of war and great geopolitical instability? Grant Shapps. He's a guy who's been busted 3 times for using pseudonyms and for running a get-rich-quick scheme off the books while an MP. And he's only Secretary of State for Defence because he's a Sunak loyalist. That's the only reason he was given that job. Let's move on. Jeremy Hunt is the Chancellor of the Exchequer. It's his job to oversee tax and monetary policy in the United Kingdom. Now, part of being an MP is that you're supposed to declare your business and personal interests. Jeremy Hunt forgot to declare that he bought a load of luxury flats. Does that mean he owes a little bit more tax? Does that mean he was in bed with the property developer and he just didn't want to declare it? I don't know. But how can you forget to declare something like that when you're a member of parliament and your whole thing is supposed to be integrity, transparency and serving the public? James Cleverly, aka Jimmy Dimley, is our Home Secretary. And when he used to be Conservative Party chairman, he was running CCHQ, which is the Tories' campaigning nerve centre. When he was running that, he changed the Twitter handle from @CCHQ to Fact Check UK in the middle of an election debate so he could misrepresent himself as a fact-checking org, and then he took Labour's policies and the things that Labour was saying and he funneled out misinformation to try to trash it. He should never work in politics again. Instead, he was promoted, and now he's our Home Sec. Even away from the actual cabinet, people like Suella Braven, like leadership hopefuls, she tried to circumvent processes to get out of the repercussions of her own speeding fine. Robert Jenrick, most famous for painting over the Mickey Mouse murals because they might be too welcoming for refugee children. He got busted. He admits this. Fiddling the books to allow a Tory donor, Richard Desmond, to escape about £50 million in tax. These are the people that lead the country now. This is the state of them. And yet still there will be people going, yeah, but Labour are just as bad. And to some extent you expect this kind of stuff in politics. Like, it's infamously sociopathic, isn't it? It's infamously corrupt. Even in the dying days of New Labour, I think there'd been about 3 or 4 corruption scandals, right? But there's also the sleaze factor to this stuff. Think about Pincher, about how long it took for him to, not get fired. It was only when it blew up in the papers that finally he was booted out. Then we had the guy, looking at the tractor pics. Do you remember that stuff? In the front row, all of that sleaze. And now just overnight, I don't know if you've seen this, right? The Times broke a story late last night that a Tory MP by the name of Menzies, I think his name is. Anyway, he apparently has previous. He's been engaging with Brazilian escorts or something. And anyway, he phones one of his staff at 3 a.m. and demands that she transfers him thousands of pounds out of her own personal savings. He asks for it to come from the campaigning money, campaign finance money, because he's in debt to some sort of Soho basement. He describes them as bad people. He's like, I've got in with some really bad people and they've locked me in a room and they're not going to let me out unless I transfer them £5,000. And this is separate to another story a few months ago where they were secret Tory MP, unnamed Tory MP, wakes up in brothel with none of his clothes in blind panic. I would forgive some of the corruption. I would forgive some of the sleaze if the general state of the formerly Great Britain was actually passable. But it's not. It's look at the state of the country. You've got utilities companies going bankrupt, this council going under, that council going under, these public services hugely underfunded, that school crumbling. If you were actually good at running the country, at just doing the day job, I'd probably look the other way. When somebody goes, oh yeah, did you hear about that MP? Yeah, he's caught in a brothel like 4 a.m. asking for thousands of pounds of I'd probably go like, well, you know, politicians, you know, they're always going to do that. But you know what? I can see a GP in like 9 hours now. You know, it sort of comes back to my ethos I was sort of sharing the other day, right? Is that the general public, just everyday people, will be willing to look the other way. They'll let you get away with the most horrendous stuff if you just take care of your day job, right? And if you don't believe me on that, look back at Michael Jackson, right? Michael Jackson almost certainly did horrendous things to kids, but you know what? Every other day, he went back in the studio and he took care of his day job. He made you a hit single and that kept you happy. Guys, that's it for this one. The latest episode of the podcast is now off of Patreon and out to everyone on YouTube. Peace.